Okay, so we're diving into Tomi Adeyemi's Children of Virtue and Vengeance today.
Right.
And looks like we're going to be dealing with magic and conflict and personal struggles.
Lots of it.
Really intense personal struggles, actually.
Yeah.
So, our mission, if we choose to accept it, and I think we have, is to try to get a handle
Absolutely.
on all the key events and
Yeah.
the character dynamics
Definitely.
in these pages without getting overwhelmed by the fantasy jargon.
It can be a lot.
So think of this deep dive as a shortcut to understanding what's going on, who the major players are, and why it all matters.
A roadmap, like exactly.
A roadmap
Roadmap.
of Orisha.
Yeah. And we've got a few different viewpoints in these pages.
We do.
Primarily Zeli and Amari, but we also get glimpses into Inan's thoughts. Right off the bat, we see Zeli in this really dangerous confrontation.
Yeah.
Facing these mercenaries. They've got a bounty on her head.
It's interesting how we're
immediately thrown into this world that's been reshaped by the return of magic. I mean, she's facing these mercenaries because of the magical resurgence.
It's a direct consequence.
Yeah, in Orisha.
Yeah. And, and we see those golden marks on her skin.
Right away. Yeah.
That's a clear signifier, right?
Oh, absolutely.
That she is one of the Magi.
That's how you know.
One of those who can wield magic.
Right. Who has been historically oppressed and now holds a very different kind of power.
Yeah, it throws you right into the deep end.
Yeah.
And then we get this almost serene moment.
Yeah.
High above the city. Yeah. This incredible view. You can almost feel the scope of this world. But then it's immediately undercut.
Right.
By Zeli's worry about the displaced people below.
Right.
The white-haired Magi and
both the white-haired and the dark-haired Poseidon.
Yeah, all boarding this boat. And Rowan's.
That cryptic comment about weakness.
Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it?
It is.
This contrast between the beauty and this real underlying tension, this vulnerability.
It feels really significant.
It's very significant.
Yeah.
It highlights that their situation is precarious. Magic hasn't, ushered in this era of peace.
Right.
It's actually amplified the divisions.
Yeah, and even created new ones.
Yeah, and Zeli's concern really speaks to the human cost of this upheaval.
Yes.
And Rowan's comment, although harsh, likely reflect a survivalist mentality.
Yeah, in a world where power dynamics have totally...
drastically shifted.
Yeah, drastically shifted.
But danger still lurks everywhere.
Right, and that yearning for liberation that we see, is a core theme
It is.
of so many resistance narratives.
It is.
It really underscores the condition.
Right, the oppressive
conditions that the Magi have faced and continue to face.
Absolutely.
And we also get this sense of this really complicated history between Zeli and Rowan.
Oh, yeah.
Shared nightmares, this intense connection. It's almost unsettling.
Unsettling for sure.
And then he asks her this pivotal question. If you don't want magic anymore, what do you want?
Right.
And her answer,
powerful.
I want to be free.
Right.
And her insistence that Amari must take the throne so that her father's death isn't meaningless.
Right.
It shows the personal stakes.
It does. It really does.
It's not just about magic. It's about freedom.
Absolutely. And I think that question forces her to confront her deepest desires beyond just the fight for magical rights.
Right.
Is her support for Amari solely about honoring her father's sacrifice?
Yeah.
Or does she see Amari as this key to a different future? A future where the Magi can be truly free. And the nightmares hint at a deep shared trauma.
Right.
They've been through so much together. And I think that informs their dynamic.
Yeah.
And Rowan's perhaps protective,
if
cynical attitude towards her.
Yeah. And then we shift to Amari's perspective.
Right.
And we meet Queen Nahanda, who's described as having these sharp angles and severe lines.
Yes.
In golden armor, a very striking image.
It is.
And then that's immediately contrasted with Amari's soft curves.
Right.
Such a visual way to set them up as opposing forces.
Absolutely. I think it reflects not just physical differences, but opposing leadership styles and ideologies.
Yeah.
Then we hear about blood magic.
Yes. Wielded by these figures called the Titans.
The Titans.
That immediately raises the stakes.
It does.
And introduces this forbidden and dangerous element to the magic system.
It adds this layer of forgotten power.
Yeah, and then all hell breaks loose.
Right.
With Amari and her allied Sinaine caught right in the middle.
It underscores the instability and the high stakes of their situation.
And then this just incredible display of destructive power.
Oh, yeah.
The earth literally splits open at Nahanda's touch.
Right.
Cracking the dome therein, letting in the sunlight.
Right. Complete upheaval.
It emphasizes her power.
Yeah.
And it also kind of shows the fragility of their world.
Yes.
I mean, that cracking open could symbolize a breaking of old orders.
Yes.
A forced exposure to a new reality where magic and nature itself are being rewritten.
Yeah, it makes you wonder about the limits of magic in this world.
Absolutely.
And the consequences of wielding such immense power.
Right. And then we jump to this tense interaction between Amari.
Yeah, Amari, who now is seemingly a queen herself.
Right, although we don't know.
The circumstances are unclear.
Right.
And Rowan, who is demanding payment for an extraction.
Right, mercenary.
And their exchange is just crackling.
Mm-hmm. Veiled threats.
With veiled threats. And we see a spark of magic from Amari. And then these mercenaries show up on stolen cheatinaires.
Right. I mean, he's a wild card, isn't he?
He is.
Rowan,
he is.
His mercenary nature just introduces this element that you don't really know where it's going.
And he's playing all sides. He is, yeah. I mean, he's demanding payment from Amari even in the midst of all this conflict.
Right.
It highlights his pragmatism.
Yeah.
But his skills clearly make him valuable.
Right.
But untrustworthy.
Untrustworthy, for sure.
But Amari's display of magic here is really interesting. It suggests a growing confidence, you know, and perhaps a hardening.
Yeah, as she navigates this treacherous world of leadership.
What kind of queen will she be, given these circumstances?
And then Amari is wrestling with this idea that she doesn't want to fight her own people, the Titans.
Right.
And then Zélie just drops this bomb.
Right. It was never about magic at all.
Huge insight.
Yeah, this is after Amari thinks taking down her mother will solve everything.
Right.
It suggests that Zélie understands something much deeper.
Much deeper, yeah.
About this conflict.
Yeah, it's not just about the suppression of magic. It's about historical grievances, power imbalances.
Different visions for the future of Orisha that predate the magic.
Right.
Amari's reluctance to fight the Titans shows her moral compass.
Yes.
But Zélie's words challenge her perhaps simplistic view.
Yeah, and then we get this really surreal scene with Amari encountering Inan in these dying reeds who she thought was dead.
Yeah.
And the description is so vivid.
It is, yeah.
This gaunt figure with a white streak in his hair.
Right, unsettling.
Very unsettling. And their interaction immediately turns violent, with Amari using dark magic, these black vines against him. And it's fueled by this just intense hatred and desire for him to suffer.
Yeah.
And it seems like this is all happening in a dreamscape that then shatters as Inan collapses.
Right.
It feels incredibly symbolic.
Symbolic of their broken relationship and that darkness that's kind of consumed her feelings for him.
Yeah, and then the perspective shifts to Inan.
Right.
Waking up choking, haunted by Zélie's vengeful words.
Right.
And we see the palace under attack by the Iika, and this once pristine environment is now just scarred and chaotic.
Yeah, Inan's alive.
So Inan's alive.
And in a kingdom under siege.
And he's in a kingdom under siege.
Yeah, I mean, his perspective provides this look at the threats facing the monarchy, the attacks by the Iika, another faction vying for power, and the contrast between the palace's former glory and its current state really emphasizes the impact of this conflict.
Yes.
And the fragility of Inan's position.
Yeah, and then we go back to Zélie waking up in pain, remembering that dreamscape, and she apologizes to Amari, showing this, weight of their conflict. But this war is still looming. Amari declares she's going to take down Nahanda, but then Zélie drops another bombshell. She believes Inan is alive and that she will be the one to kill him. This throws everything for a loop.
It does.
Creating this really complicated web of relationships fueled by love, betrayal, and conflicting loyalties.
It really complicates their motivations and allegiances.
It's so much more than just a political conflict.
That's personal.
Yeah. And Zélie's apology hints at reconciliation. But her revelation about Inan just creates this new rift.
Yes, it does.
And it sets up this confrontation that's going to be driven by grief and revenge and maybe lingering unresolved feelings.
Yeah.
This is a real love triangle or a love-hate triangle.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And as Amari grapples with this news about Inan,
right.
They're traveling through this dangerous landscape.
Mm-hmm.
And we see Amari showing compassion to these orphan children.
It humanizes her.
It does.
And it reinforces her desire to create a better future where innocent lives aren't caught in the crossfire.
Yeah, it reminds you what she's fighting for.
Then they have this confrontation with Rowan, and we see this kind of pragmatic, maybe even self-serving side to him.
Yeah, but he's also a source of information.
He is.
He knows about the magicite gas and the mines around this fortress where Magis are imprisoned.
Yeah.
I mean, he remains enigmatic, doesn't he?
He does.
Rowan, driven by survival, maybe profit, but his knowledge of the dangers ahead suggests that he's more than just a mercenary.
Right.
Maybe he's got this twisted sense of loyalty.
Yeah, maybe, especially to Zélie.
Yeah, or maybe he just understands this landscape of power better than most.
Yeah, and then we see Inan seemingly now a king, dealing with the aftermath of these attacks and his mother.
Right.
There's this sense of unease and pressure on him to prove himself.
Right. I mean, the weight of kingship is bearing down on him.
Yes, it is.
Stepping into a role defined by war and instability. He's inheriting a legacy.
Right.
At a time when that legacy is being questioned.
Yes.
I mean, the ceremony with his father's crown must be a reminder of his responsibilities.
Right, and the loss that he's endured. And his mother's presence adds this other layer of complexity.
Yes. Tense.
Yeah, their relationship is tense.
Fraught with expectation.
And we see Inan using magic, this Ibukun, to lay souls to rest.
Right.
Which shows this more compassionate side to him.
Right. It's like he's trying to find solace in the midst of this chaos.
Right.
And his dynamic with Rowan is still tense.
It is.
Which probably stems from their history.
Yeah, and Rowan's ambiguous loyalties.
Right, and Amari's struggling to use her magic because of what her father did.
Right, magic seems to be this double-edged sword.
Yeah, it is, a source of power, but also conflict and trauma.
Yeah.
And then there's this series of encounters that really lay out the alliances and the tensions.
Yeah. Zélie and Rowan's dynamic with Zane being protective of Zélie.
Yeah. Zélie meeting this powerful Magi named Mazelli who pledges allegiance.
Yeah. It's significant gain for her.
Yeah. And Amari facing distrust.
Yes.
From those elders.
Yes, because of her heritage and her own magic.
These interactions show just how fragmented their society is.
It really does.
Loyalties are divided.
Yeah.
Zane's protectiveness of Zélie adds another layer to her relationship with Rowan.
Yes.
Mazelli's allegiance could be a turning point for Zélie's influence.
Yeah.
But Amari's struggles with those elders really highlight the resentment towards the monarchy and the prejudice that she faces.
And then the news that Inan is alive starts spreading.
Right.
Which just throws another wrench in the works.
Yeah.
It's going to shift allegiances.
Yeah, it's a catalyst for sure.
Yeah.
Everyone has to reevaluate their strategies and allegiances.
Wow.
Amari seeking Zélie's help with her magic.
Yes.
That's a big development.
It is a big development.
Yeah. Could this be a reconciliation?
Right.
Or just a temporary truce?
Right. Very interesting.
And Inan tries to broker peace with some Aika defectors.
Right.
But it ends in this really brutal attack, leaving him shaken and his efforts completely thwarted.
Right.
And then he goes through this ritual with Mama Agba, a Reaper elder involving a blood oath, and a connection to the god Oya.
Right. I mean, it underscores the animosity and how hard it is to bridge those divides.
Right.
The ritual signifies his embrace of his magical heritage.
Yes.
He seems to be seeking...
divine intervention.
Yeah, maybe in response to his vulnerability and the failures of his diplomatic approaches.
Right.
And Ohor's loyalty provides a crucial anchor for him.
It does. Okay. And then Inan unexpectedly unleashes this powerful, stunning magic against the Ika.
Right.
Which surprises even his mother. And her reaction's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's a real display.
Yeah.
Of his capabilities.
Yeah.
A turning point in his leadership.
Yeah.
It's that mixed reaction from his mother.
Yeah.
That highlights that dynamic.
Yeah, her love for him versus her expectations.
Exactly. Of him as a ruler
And then this fierce magical duel breaks out between Inan and Ramaya. Inan unleashes this just devastating attack, leaving Ramaya barely alive. And Amari witnesses all this and feels remorse and wants to apologize to the elders.
Yeah, it's a direct confrontation.
It is.
Between the old guard and the new power.
Yes.
Represented by Inan.
Yeah.
But his victory comes at a cost.
Yeah.
It fractures the community even further.
Yeah, and Amari's remorse reflects her growing awareness of her role in this conflict. And then Amari faces the Council of Elders. In this space, just filled with ancient magic.
I mean, they represent tradition.
They do.
The weight of the Maji's history. And Zélie offers this really pragmatic approach. Yes, she does.
To seeking peace.
Yeah.
But Amari is much more determined. You can see their leadership styles really diverging.
Yeah. Zélie's thinking about what's possible right now. And Amari seems to be aiming for something much bigger.
Much more transformative.
Yeah.
But also riskier.
Yeah. And Inan, now feeling more secure in his rule after that display of power, gets this report about progress in the war against the Ika. But then Dakarai has this vision of Nahanda's forces guarding a sacred temple.
I mean, as one conflict seems to be resolving, a new objective emerges.
Yes.
A new confrontation.
Yeah. It's a constant cycle.
It is, yeah.
So this group sets out to infiltrate this temple. We get to see the unique magical abilities of different Maji.
It really showcases the diversity of talent.
Yeah, like Hamari's earth manipulation.
That sounds useful.
But
there are tensions and trauma.
Even when they're working towards a common goal, their personal histories make this really complex dynamic.
It's a fragile alliance.
It is.
Built on necessity.
Yeah.
And individual baggage could really derail their plans.
And of course, the infiltration goes wrong.
Of course.
You get discovered. And a desperate escape ensues. Zélie has to use her magic to create a passage.
Raises the stakes.
It does.
They're in reactive mode now. Zélie's quick thinking is crucial.
Yes, it is.
But they didn't achieve their objective. This will have consequences.
Yes.
For sure.
And then there's this confrontation between the infiltrators and Nahanda and Inan. And Zélie and Inan have this charged, almost yearning encounter.
Even in the chaos.
Yeah.
Their
past connection is still there.
It underscores those ties between them.
Yeah.
Despite their allegiances and the animosity, they have this shared past.
Yeah. And these unresolved feelings. They're not just political enemies.
It adds a real layer of personal tragedy to it all.
And inside the scroll room, they encounter a captured Titan. And its power is unlike anything the Maji had ever seen.
Sounds terrifying.
And Amari takes command, prioritizing these scrolls, but ordering the rest to be burned so they don't fall into enemy hands.
She's willing to make
it's a ruthless decision.
Difficult choices.
That shocks Inan.
Yes, it shows the contrast between her pragmatism and perhaps his more idealistic leanings.
And then Inan experiences this surge of uncontrollable power. This beam of light erupting from him. And Zélie seems to understand what's happening. Referring to centers who can absorb Titan powers. And the implication that Inan might be like his mother is really troubling.
It introduces a whole new element of danger.
It does.
The ability to absorb Titan power would make someone so formidable. And the parallel to his mother is ominous.
It is.
It makes you wonder about the nature of this ability.
And the limits and the potential drawbacks.
Absolutely.
And then this tragic fight happens where Inan kills Zélie. And you can really feel Inan grappling with the guilt.
The more cost.
And the weight of his actions. And Amari witnesses this. And it hardens her resolve against him.
It does. It fuels her desire for retribution.
Zélie's death is a huge loss.
It is a turning point in the conflict.
And Amari returns to the sanctuary, and she's wrestling with her past actions, including her role in her father's death.
She's understanding the consequences of her choices.
And Mama Agba explains the cost of creating a center and tells this tale of two Maji whose combined magic created Magisate.
The gas.
That we've heard about.
It's like a warning about the destructive potential.
even when magic is used for good. But Amari starts to master this new form of shadow magic.
Right.
And experiences this moment of freedom.
Yeah, it shows her resilience.
It does.
And her adaptability.
And Zélie stepping into a leadership role.
Right.
Guiding other Reapers in their training.
They're finding their footing.
Yeah.
As leaders.
Yeah. And Amari is reflecting on the war.
Right.
Her own growth.
Right.
And her potential as a leader.
And then during a training exercise with these shadow gliders.
Yeah. Which sound pretty cool.
They do, yeah.
A horn sounds signaling an unexpected arrival at the sanctuary.
You see, sanctuary's under threat.
It is, and Amari investigates.
Yeah.
Fearing the worst.
That sense of foreboding. Yeah. It's palpable.
And a battle does erupt at the sanctuary.
Right.
The Reapers, including Zélie, unleash their combined shadow magic.
Right. They have to rely on their unity.
They do.
And their strength together.
Yeah.
It's a real test of their bond.
Yeah, and then this devastating attack by a centaur forces Zélie and Mazelli to combine their power.
Right.
They create this really powerful defense, but it comes at a huge cost to Mazelli, who dies from the strain.
Right.
And Zélie's heartbroken.
It shows how dangerous those centaurs are.
Yeah.
I mean, the loss of Mazelli.
Yeah, a huge blow.
Yeah, a turning point.
And Inan, witnessing all this devastation, hardens his resolve to destroy the Aegika.
No matter the cost.
No matter the cost.
To anyone.
Yeah.
He's going down a ruthless path.
He is.
It really shows how conflict can warp good intentions.
Yeah, and Amari finds a wounded Rowan.
Right.
And their interaction is so tender.
Yeah, you can feel that connection.
You can.
Yeah.
And he says, Ichil, you are my home.
Wow.
Really highlighting the emotional stakes here.
That's beautiful, but so sad. He found something meaningful.
He did.
Yeah.
And Amari is just fueled by grief and vengeance.
Right. For Mazelli.
For Mazelli.
That powerful motivator.
She rallies the Madji, and she uses Yoruba to unite them.
Right. She's connecting with their shared heritage.
Yeah.
And turning her grief into a force to galvanize her followers.
And Amari plans a strategic attack on Ibadan.
Right.
But she excludes the other elders and keeps the plan secret with Jahi.
Right. She's going rogue.
She is.
It signifies a growing rift.
Yes, it does.
And a belief in her own vision. Yeah. He's becoming more assertive.
And then Rowan is gravely wounded.
Oh, no.
And Amari's attempts to save him are futile.
Right.
And his final word is home.
A testament to what he found with her.
It is.
This is a huge loss for her.
Yeah,
tragic.
And Amari, heartbroken but resolute, uses her magic against Zane to prevent him and the other elders from walking into danger. She's making these incredibly difficult choices.
It highlights the burden of leadership.
It does.
Doesn't it?
Yes.
And the sacrifices she has to make.
But then that familiar horn sounds, it's one of their own.
Okay.
Black-feathered hawks arrive.
Reinforcements.
Yes.
Just in time.